You really thought these medals meant something to you, didn't you, pal? Richard's voice was a low growl, barely controlled fury. He stood, a formidable shadow towering over the shaking figure. The man in the uniform, once confident and charismatic, now stammered. I'm a hero. I served, you can't touch me. Richard chuckled, a harsh, humorless sound. A hero? You're a thief. You stole the honor of men who actually bled for this country, and now my brothers and I are here to teach you what real service looks like. You're about to get a very personal boot camp. How did a celebrated war hero end up facing down an entire biker gang, many of whom were actual combat veterans? It all started with a lie, and a community's sacred trust betrayed. Every small town has its heroes, and for the past year, Willow Creek's hero was Captain Courage Miller. He arrived with a compelling story. A decorated Green Beret, a Purple Heart recipient, a survivor of brutal combat in Afghanistan. He spoke at local schools, led patriotic parades, and inspired countless residents. His charity, Heroes Haven, promised to build accessible homes for wounded veterans. Donations poured in, over 200,000 in just a year. Captain Miller was everywhere, a symbol of selfless service. But under the polished uniform and practiced smile, there was a dark secret. Captain Miller wasn't a hero. He was a fraud. It started subtly, a slight inconsistency in his stories, a military decoration that seemed out of place. Some of the actual veterans in Willow Creek, men who had seen real combat, felt a flicker of unease. Richard, president of the Iron Horseman Motorcycle Club, and a decorated Marine veteran of 2 tours himself, heard the whispers. He knew the difference between a real soldier and a storyteller. He sent Snake, his club's resident investigator, to dig a little deeper. Snake, a former military intelligence officer, knew how to cut through the fog of war stories. What Snake found was damning. Captain Miller had indeed served in the military, but only for a brief, unremarkable stint in a desk job far from any combat zone. His Purple Heart? Bought online. His Green Beret? A costume prop. His entire story was a carefully constructed lie designed to exploit the patriotism and generosity of an unsuspecting town. The $200,000 raised for Heroes Haven? It never went to veterans. It went to Captain Miller's lavish lifestyle, a new sports car, exotic vacations, designer clothes. He wasn't building homes for heroes. He was building a personal empire on their stolen valor. Richard gathered his club. 50 men, many of them genuine veterans from every branch of service: Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force. Some bore the invisible scars of battle, others the visible ones. To them, stolen valor wasn't just a lie. It was a desecration. It was spitting on the graves of their fallen brothers and sisters. Richard held up the evidence Snake had uncovered. The room was silent, then a low rumble of furious agreement. This wasn't just about money. It was about honor. The Iron Horseman didn't go to the police. The police would launch an investigation, press charges, and Miller would get a lawyer. It would be slow, messy, and the town's good name would be dragged through the mud. Richard had a different kind of justice in mind. A personal one. One that would teach Captain Miller a lesson he would never forget. A lesson specifically designed for a fake soldier. They decided to give Captain Miller his very own boot camp. Not the kind he faked, but the kind that would break him, expose him, and make him truly understand the cost of the honor he had stolen. They were going to make him earn every single one of those fake medals. The question wasn't if Captain Miller would be exposed, but what would be left of him after 50 real. Veterans were done with their very personalized training exercise. Please, click the subscribe button and show us your support so we can continue bringing you these stories. The night Captain Miller thought he was attending a clandestine charity gala, he was actually walking into a trap set by men who understood true discipline. The air was cold, the ground unforgiving, and his instructors were 50 real veterans, ready to give him the most intense, life-altering boot camp of his pathetic life. Captain Miller arrived at the secluded warehouse expecting champagne and donors. Instead, he found Richard and 50 grim-faced bikers waiting. The doors slammed shut behind him. His smile faltered. "Captain Miller," Richard said, his voice flat. "We've been doing some research. Turns out you've never served a day in combat. Your medals are fake. Your charity is a scam. You're a disgrace." Miller tried to bluster, to deny, to threaten. "How dare you? I'm a decorated officer. I'll have you all arrested." Razor, a burly Marine vet with a face that looked carved from granite, stepped forward. "You're not an officer. You're a fraud, and tonight you're our recruit. Your training starts now." The bikers put Captain Miller through an excruciating boot camp. It wasn't about physical violence, not directly. It was about humiliation, exhaustion, and breaking his spirit. They made him do push-ups until his arms gave out. They made him crawl through mud. They made him run laps around the warehouse until he collapsed, gasping for air. They forced him to carry heavy sandbags, simulating the weight of a fallen comrade, while they barked genuine military commands at him, commands he had no idea how to follow. Every time he complained, every time he tried to quit, a different veteran would step forward, their eyes burning with a silent fury, and remind him of the real soldiers who had endured far worse. The physical torment was only part of it. The real lesson was psychological. Doc, a former Army medic, showed him actual photos of wounded veterans, men who had lost limbs, suffered traumatic brain injuries, all while Miller squirmed. "These are real heroes. Miller," Doc said softly, his voice laced with venom. "They sacrificed everything. While you bought a sports car with their honor, they forced him to watch videos of actual combat footage, then asked him to describe what was happening, knowing he couldn't. They made him read letters written by Gold Star families who had lost sons and daughters, while he sat in silence, confronted by the raw grief he had profited from. The weight of his deception, stripped bare, began to crush him. By dawn, Captain Miller was a broken man. The uniform was torn, stained with mud and sweat. His bravado was gone, replaced by genuine fear and profound shame. He had truly experienced a fraction of the cost of service, not through actual combat, but through the relentless, unforgiving judgment of men who had. Richard knelt beside him. "You stole from heroes, Miller. You stole from their families. You have two choices. You can go to the police and we'll ensure every victim knows what you did. Or you can sign over every penny you stole, publicly confess your fraud, and spend the rest of your life making amends." Miller chose the latter. He was driven to the town square, still wearing his soiled fake uniform, and surrounded by the 50 silent bikers. In front of a gathering crowd, and with news cameras rolling, he delivered a halting, tearful confession admitting his fraud, apologizing for his stolen valor, and pledging to repay every penny. The $200,000 was recovered. Richard personally ensured it was distributed to legitimate veterans' charities, and a real, accessible home was finally built in Willow Creek, dedicated to those who truly served. Captain Miller vanished from the town. Rumor has it he now volunteers at a homeless shelter for veterans, a silent, humble figure trying to atone for his past. Richard never checked, but he knew the lesson had stuck. The Iron Horseman had delivered justice, not through violence, but through a unique brand of truth and consequence, tailored specifically for a man who had lied about honor. The story of the fake war hero became a cautionary tale in Willow Creek, but the story of the biker veterans became a legend. They showed that true honor isn't bought with medals or stolen with stories. It's earned through sacrifice, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to protecting those who truly deserve it. They reminded everyone that when you fake being a war hero, you might just find yourself facing a real army. If you believe in honoring true heroes, please click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Join our community for more powerful stories where integrity always wins.